I was just telling him, you'll never believe what we did last night. We went to the emergency room, and I started describing these arm motions that Gracie was doing to some of my friends. And one of them sent me a video, just a short little 30-second video of a baby doing these exact identical arm motions that Gracie had been doing. And the title of the video said infantile spasms.
You are now listening to the podcast where authors inspire listeners to become authors, the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, certified self-leadership trainer, best-selling author, and book enthusiast, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be listening to a different author that will inspire you to join the business of immortality, known as authorship. Now let the fun begin. Today's episode is sponsored by both books, Going North, Tips and Techniques to Advance Yourself, and the follow-up bestseller, Stay the Course, The Elite Performer's 7 Secret Keys to Sustainable Success. Head over to Amazon.com, pick up both books. They are available in a trifecta of paperback, audio, and ebook. Cop all three of both and be on the lookout for another book from yours truly to help podcasters succeed. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the highlight reel, builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, aka GMP, the great, glorious, and glamorous. That's another great, glorious, and glamorous occasion, baby. That's right indeed, because we got another super special, awesome human for you today. That's right indeed, courtesy of the site that podcast hosts love to love. That's right indeed. And podcast guests love to love too. Podmatch.com. That's right indeed. Where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cooler than two cucumbers, they're freaking in, at least when they appear on this show indeed, because we got another super special, awesome guest for her today. Because let me tell you a bit about her, because she's a fellow child of the king, y'all. That's right indeed. So she's a fellow child of the king, a fellow Christian, y'all. That's right indeed. She loves Jesus and she loves her family because she's a stay-at-home mom as well as a wife and a wonderful entrepreneur. So let's give it up for the celebratory and fabulous Colleen Faul. How you doing today, Colleen?
I'm doing great, Dom. Thanks for having me. This is it's wonderful to be here. That was a fun intro. I've never been introduced quite like that. I love it.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. Hey, gotta share the love. That's right indeed. There doesn't have to be any heart emojis involved. We're all bread. We need butter, and I'm the guy with the butter. Gotta butter
You're
you up a
trying to
little.
butter me up.
Hey, especially when it's dinner time and you got a roll on the table, you know.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, what can I say? Somebody supposed to win the lottery. She just came over in here smiling. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right indeed. The puns have come twice as fast now. It's like, yep, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. But hey, as with all introductions, not allowed to be 78 days long, and I probably only covered 7 minutes of what the wonderful vitamin C, aka Colleen, has to offer. So my goodness, it's your first time on the podcast. Mind filling in any cavities I may have missed about you, Colleen?
Oh yeah, no. Vitamin C. I'm gonna have to carry that one over. I'm gonna tell my husband that, and we'll see if it catches on. Yeah. No. Oh my goodness. Yeah, no. So I am, like you said, I am a wife. I am a mom. I've got two beautiful, rambunctious toddlers. And one of them, my youngest, my little girl, Gracie, she's almost 2 years old. But she was actually born with special needs that we found out about when she was about 6 months old. And finding out about she has a genetic disorder as well as a rare form of epilepsy, and she actually just got diagnosed a couple of months ago with autism as well.
Oh,
And
dang.
so she's got all kinds of stuff going on. And in the aftermath of finding out about all that she has, I'm a very faithful person. I've got a very strong faith life, and I was turning to God and I was praying about all that she was dealing with and all that we were dealing with as a family as a result. And the oddest thing happened. I got inspired to write a children's book, which I didn't see coming at all. And I like to say that, I wrote this book down, but I didn't write it. I didn't come up with a single thing in there. I I literally woke up in the middle of the night one night with the idea for this story, and it was such a strong feeling like I just have to write this down. I went to my computer and I just started typing, and I typed for hours. And thank goodness it's a children's book, so I was able to get the entire first draft written in that one night, just a couple of hours. And then I went back a couple of hours later and I read it, and it was like someone else had written it. And it was the book that I needed to hear. I needed to read this book. Like, as a mom in this position, I needed to read it. The book ended up being called God's Precious Gift, A Special Needs Child. And as you can kind of guess from the title, it's all about God's incredible, incredible, deep love for children with special needs, and how he gives them to their families and to their communities, not as mistakes or as punishments, but as gifts, as incredible gifts. And just, it really addresses, I think, the spiritual side of having a child with special needs, of being a child with special needs. And I have seen so many books out there that address the emotional side or even the physical side of having some kind of disability, or, a physical ailment, being in a wheelchair, having autism, just lots of different things that make kids different. And these books will describe, what's it like for other kids, to help them understand what is it like to have this disability or that, and kind of it helps open their eyes to that. And that's wonderful. But I have not seen any books out there that address the spiritual side of it, that address the God part of it, of why would God allow a child to be born with a special with special needs, or with a disability or a genetic disorder or what have you. And that is what I needed to read at that time in my life as a mom of a child with a disability. And it was just so encouraging, and so it was life-giving to write the book and to create it and to get it illustrated and bring it into being. And then it was beautiful to publish it, because I've seen so many other families who have reached out to me after reading it, and they've just been so touched by it. And they have said, like, this was a book I really needed to read. Thank you for writing this. This touched my heart. This either was a book that this gave me insight that I needed to have, that answered questions that my heart had, or it was a book that just confirmed what I already knew, that my child, or my grandchild, or my niece or my nephew, my friend, whatever it may be, I knew that they were a gift from God. And this was a great way of reading it and just confirming that. So that's kind of the story of how I became an author. That's my book. And it was not something that I ever expected. I never thought I would write a children's book. I never thought I would become an author, but it happened, and it's been a beautiful journey. And I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Don't worry about next. It'll still be north.
Yeah, I hope so.
Don't worry, it ain't no hope it will, because it's a definite need for like parents who have those wonderful gifts from God. It's like, hey, special needs children. It's like, hey, they just need that extra attention more than your average child. And it's like, hey, they just need a little bit more guidance, a little more
Mhm,
guardrails to help them along the way
mhm.
indeed. And it's like, oh crap, blindsided. Like, oh no, this is not what I expected. But hey, sometimes it
Yeah.
happens for a reason indeed. So my goodness. So in addition to putting pen to paper and joining the business of
Mhm.
immortality by publishing this book, what else has helped you with, I guess, being a special needs mom? Because I hear you had to be a mama lion when it comes to the first few months of everything going on.
Oh, goodness, yeah, you heard about that. Okay, so when my daughter's name is Grace. When she was born, we thought we had a healthy baby. We did not know that there was anything wrong with her. They sent us home from the hospital with a baby that we thought was gonna be, just your average typical newborn. And we continued to think that for a while, but as she started to get a little bit older, she was very slow to meet milestones. And at first, I wasn't super worried about it because, the guidelines they tell you for milestones, it's like those are averages. Every child is on their own clock. So when she's like, as at 2 and 3 months old, I wasn't super concerned yet. I was just like, okay, she's on her own timeline. She's just a little slower. She's okay though. She'll get there. But then what I was really starting to notice was her eyes. And her eyes would not, we got to 4 months old and her eyes were still not focusing on anything. And I took her to a pediatric ophthalmologist and he told me that her eyes are probably just slow to mature. Don't worry about it. Her eyes will learn to start focusing. And I started using that to justify other things that she was slow to do. Like she probably wasn't reaching for things, probably because she couldn't see them, that kind of a thing. And I would just justify in my head. But as she got to be about 5 months old and her eyes still weren't really focusing on anything, I brought this information to her pediatrician and I said, "Hey, I know the ophthalmologist said that her eyes are probably just slow to mature, but just to rule anything out, can we have a neurologist look at her just to check everything out and make sure we've looked under every stone and dotted our I's and crossed our T's?" And her pediatrician said that she was not really concerned, but more just to humor me, she would have a referral sent for her to see a neurologist. And she said that she was going to send her referral to another hospital that in a town that was about an hour away because they're more likely to be seen sooner there. And I was like, okay, that's fine. But this other hospital, something was going on over there, that there was chaos going on in their office because I kept on calling them every week for a month and we still didn't even get an appointment made. This or that or the other hadn't been filed correctly, hadn't been sent properly. They were giving me the runaround for a month and it was driving me nuts. And Gracie was still not reaching these milestones. Not only was she not reaching the milestones as this month went by, but she actually started regressing and she stopped being able to do things that she was able to do before. She stopped being able to roll over. She stopped being able to smile. And that was really getting concerning to me. And then finally, when she was almost 6 months old, she started doing this really weird arm motion with both of her arms, where both of her arms at the same time would shoot up above her head. And they'd go up and then they'd come back down. And then Gracie herself, when you looked at her, you could tell she wasn't happy about the fact that her arms had just gone up. She was surprised by it. And she would start fussing. And then 10 seconds later, her arms would shoot up again. And it was and this kept on happening over and over and over again. Every few seconds her arms would shoot up and then she would kept on getting more and more upset about it. So I was looking at this and I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at, but this doesn't feel normal. I don't know what's happening here, but I got a bad feeling. And so I took her I showed what she was doing to my husband. He kind of was like, I'm not really sure what that is, but it's probably not a big deal. She's probably just being silly. Don't worry. And that didn't register as right to me. So I brought her next door. My mom happens to live next door to me. So I brought her next door and I showed my mom what she was doing. And my mom looked at her and was like, she agreed with me. No, this isn't normal. Babies aren't supposed to be doing this. Something's very wrong here. And I think after getting that one other confirmation from my mom, I grabbed my husband, grabbed my wallet, grabbed my baby, and we rushed off to the hospital in a highly illegal car drive. We were speeding we were going like 100 miles an hour and she was not in her car seat because her arms kept on shooting up. I was holding her in the front seat of the car. We would have gone to jail if we'd gotten pulled over. But we made it to the emergency room and we brought her in there and we ended up spending like 5 hours in the emergency room. And the doctors there, they took a chest x-ray and they did a blood panel. And then they came back to us and said, we can't find anything wrong with her. go home. She's probably just being fussy. And at that point, it was like 11 o'clock at night. Gracie had been crying the entire time that we were there. She was finally asleep in my arms. And when the doctor said, she's fine, she's just being fussy, go home, I wanted to believe that that was true. I really, really did. And I was like, okay, I will wear the overreactive mom hat. I will wear it with pride. That is okay. But as long as my baby is okay, that's all right. I will handle that, and I'm okay with that. So we brought her home that night. And then the next day, I started texting some girlfriends of mine, just kind of chatting, because I'm a stay-at-home mom. I was home with my kids. And I was just telling them, you'll never believe what we did last night. We went to the emergency room, and I started describing these arm motions that Gracie was doing to some of my friends. And one of them sent me a video, just a short little 30-second video of a baby doing these exact identical arm motions that Gracie had been doing. And the title of the video said infantile spasms. I didn't know what infantile spasms was, but it just sounded scary. So I jumped on Google and I did a 5-minute Google search, and 5 minutes on Google told me enough to know that infantile spasms is a rare form of child epilepsy found in babies, and it is very serious and it needs to be treated immediately and aggressively. And basically what it is your child is having seizures that dozens to hundreds at a time, happening in clusters, happening over and over and over again, seconds apart. And when I found that out, armed with that information, I called her pediatrician right away. And I said, we need to, I think my daughter's having infantile spasms. We need to get her to have an EEG right away. She needs to have an EEG today. And the nurse I was talking to said, okay, well, we see on file that you've already got a neurology referral on file. Why don't we just keep that appointment? And I said, you don't understand. I don't even have an appointment made yet for her to see a neurologist. They've been giving me the runaround for a month, and my daughter needs an EEG today. So they put me on hold. And they came back a while later and they said, okay, Ms. Faul, we can put you on the roster here for the neurology department at this hospital, but you won't get seen for about a month. And that's when I said, darling, I hear what you're saying and I understand what you're saying. Now I need you to hear and understand me. My daughter needs an EEG today, and I'm not getting off the phone until she has an appointment for today for an EEG. And then they put me on hold again. And when they finally came back, they said, okay, Ms. Faul, we can schedule her for an EEG, for an emergency EEG tomorrow. Is that soon enough? And I said, okay, that's enough, or that's soon enough. We will wait until tomorrow. And so that gave me about 24 hours to really look up what infantile spasms was, and to definitely just freak out, because everything I was finding out about it was terrifying. So children who have infantile spasms are very often affected cognitively, developmentally. It's very often that they will have developmental delays and sometimes mental retardation, and there's a very wide spectrum of affectedness. Some children, they have spasms for a couple of days, they get on medicine, and then they get seizure free right away, and then they go on to develop normally. And on the other side of that spectrum, there's children who are very, very severely affected for the rest of their lives, who never develop properly, or on time, or they end up having all kinds of disabilities, developmental disabilities. And so I'm praying about this the whole time. As we're going into the hospital, I'm just praying, dear God, please let this not be infantile spasms. Let me be wrong. And they hooked her up to the machine for an EEG. And I don't know if you've ever had an EEG before, but they have to connect like 30 wires to Gracie's head with this paste, and she was not happy about that at all, having all these wires put on her. But finally, they got them all on, and my job was to help her fall asleep so that she could fall asleep as the EEG was working. So imagine, if you will, it's me and this one little EEG technician lady, and then I'm holding Gracie and I'm laying down on a hospital bed, and the lights are dim, and I'm trying to rock her to sleep, and I have to keep perfectly still so that she will not wake up. And then they turn on the machine, and the EEG technician is looking at the screen, and within 30 seconds of the machine turning on, she gets on her phone and she starts texting like crazy. And I can tell that
Mm.
the energy in the room has just shifted. And I asked her, "Is everything okay? Is something wrong?" And she puts her phone down. I found out later she was texting the neurologist, and she said, "I am not supposed to tell you this because I am not the neurologist and I am not qualified to make a diagnosis. But I know that if that was my daughter lying in that bed, I would want to know. Your daughter has infantile spasms." And
Mm.
immediately, just like this boulder just fell down on my chest, and I just start crying there. And I have to try to keep perfectly still as I'm crying on the bed, just like so that I don't wake her up. And that was the beginning of our new life. They immediately admitted us to the ER, and we ended up staying in the hospital for about 3 days. And during that stay, Gracie turned 6 months old, and they did about 100 different types of tests, one of which was an MRI of her brain. And when the results of her brain MRI came back, the neurologist came and talked to us and said, "Your daughter's MRI does not look typical. She has lesions in her brain, and her brain kind of, we're not sure if it's because of the angle she was laying at or if it's just the shape of her brain, but the shape of her brain looks somewhat, it looks misshapen. It looks like an oddly shaped brain." And they said that because of this, we think that she has an additional, even more rare condition called tuberous sclerosis complex. I didn't know what that was at all, had never heard of it. So I jumped on Google and found out that tuberous sclerosis complex is a very rare genetic disorder. And it's where the gene in her DNA that is responsible for regulating cellular growth, it has a mutation on it, and so it's malfunctioning. And so what that results in is her body just starts growing these random growths of cells that take the form of benign, non-cancerous tumors that could show up literally anywhere. They could show up in her brain, in her heart, in any of her vital organs, on her skin, in her eyes, anywhere. They could literally show up anywhere. And the tumors themselves are non-cancerous, so they're not dangerous in that way. But depending on where they decide to show up and how big they are and how many of them decide to show up, they can cause some very significant health problems. They also can cause some very significant developmental problems and cognitive problems. And again, just like infantile spasms, there's a very wide spectrum of affectedness. There are people who go their entire lives not knowing that they have tuberous sclerosis until they get a little older and they start having what they think is acne show up on their face that they can't get to go away. So they go into a dermatologist and they say, "Hey, I can't get rid of this acne." And then the dermatologist looks at it and says, "Hey, that's not acne. Those are tubers. And you have
Mm.
tuberous sclerosis complex." So there's people who are very mild cases like that. But then there's the other side of the spectrum where people have significant developmental delays and cognitive inabilities or disabilities. And there's and seizures and very, very severe affectedness. And so I'm sitting there in the hospital thinking, my dog, and then we also found out that she also has two holes in her heart as well. So
Ooh.
I'm thinking like she's got two little holes in her heart. She's got a rare genetic disorder and a rare form of epilepsy. Like she's won the lottery 3 times. Like what in the world is going on? And so I start having some very, very honest conversations with God. I turn to prayer and I'm I'm telling him like it is. Like God, what are you doing here? I am not prepared for this. This is not what I signed up for. I had plans for my daughter and you're messing with them. Like that was kind of where I was. That's where I was at the beginning. And just to kind of give you an idea of what was going on. And it was, there's I'm going to describe it as a grieving process. I went through a grieving process, not for a death, because this isn't a death sentence, but I was grieving for the life not lived, for the life that my daughter didn't get to live. And by extension, the life that I didn't get to live, that my whole family didn't get to live. I had all of these dreams for her that I didn't even realize I had until I realized they were gone. Dreams of, I think every parent has dreams of your child growing up, going to school, making friends, finding a job that they love, falling in love, getting married, having kids, just these general things that are now thrown into question. And on top of that, all of these even tiny little things that almost every parent assumes and presumes that their kids are going to be able to do. Things, basic things like walking, talking, being able to feed themselves. We couldn't take any of those things for granted anymore because not all kids with these conditions are able to do those things. Like it was a really scary time. And it was the most intense opportunity of walking by faith and not by sight that I had ever been presented with. And I'm very, very thankful that I had a faith life foundation, that I had a relationship with God, because without that, I don't know if I would have gotten through all of it because my heart just shattered. And I was terrified and I was scared and I was grieving for the loss of the things that my daughter wasn't going to get to have. And I didn't know what the future would hold. I think that was one of the scariest things is I didn't know what the future would hold. I didn't know what she would grow into. And I had all of these things I wanted for her that I didn't know that she would be able to have in her future now. And it was a really scary time. And also lumped into that was the fear that I'm not sure I'm strong enough to be the mother she needs. I'm not sure I have what it takes to be able to give her the proper care and encouragement and love that she needs. I feel like I'm going to mess up here. I was just feeling very inadequate to the task. And in the midst of that very sad, dark, grieving place, I was inspired to write this book. I was inspired to write this children's book that I didn't come up with. This stuff was not floating around in my head ahead of time. This was an inspiration for a book story that I needed. I think God sent it to me as an answer to my own prayers. And this story is the story of a mom and a dad who have a daughter, and they find out that their daughter is going to be a very special child, and she's going to have needs that most other kids don't have, and she's going to need help with a lot of things that most other kids don't need help with. And the parents are scared about this, and they start praying. And they're praying the same prayers that I was praying. They were praying, God, please fix our baby. Just fix our baby. I don't want this for her. And in the book, Jesus comes and he has a conversation with the parents. And it starts with the parents praying, God, fix our baby. And Jesus answers them, fix your baby. But she is already exactly the way that I chose to make her. And it goes on from there with Jesus asking them, do you think I make mistakes? Which was a really big question. A really, really big question. Do you think I make mistakes? The answer is no. The answer is no. And he goes on to explain to them, he goes on to help them understand that, hey, I have given you this daughter not as a punishment, not as a mistake. I have given her to you as a gift, an incredible gift given specifically to you out of love. I've given her to you because she is going to need exactly you as her parents to care for her. And I have known that she was going to be your child long before you were even born. And I have been preparing you for this, to be her parent your entire lives. And I've already given you the graces you need for this job. So don't worry about not being up to the task. I've made sure that you are up to the task, and I'm with you through all of it. And don't forget that the point of this life is not to be normal. The point of this life is to get to heaven. And this daughter of yours is already so incredibly loved by me. I love her even more than you do. And that's a lot. And and she will be and caring for her, she will be an avenue of my grace for you. And caring for her, just like it says in the Bible, when you care for one of the least of these, you are caring for me. In caring for her, you will be caring for me. And in caring for her, that will be your path to heaven, the path that I have created specifically for you. And that is why she is a gift. She is your path to heaven. And yes, there's going to be hard times, but that's only going to make the good times even greater. And yes, you're going to have some amazing times. And it's, I can go on and on and on about all the stuff that's in this book. There's so much there that I didn't come up with. There's so much there that I didn't, like, I feel like God inspired me to write this because I needed to read it, because that's exactly where I was. And the book has, it's such a beautiful message. It's such an incredibly strong and clear, but gentle, also a gentle message of just the intense love that God has for children with special needs, of all special needs. And it's relatable and accessible and simple enough for children to understand so that they can understand what a precious gift they are. But it's also powerful enough to touch the hearts of the parents who are reading it to them. And in all of that, I mean, this book almost happened on accident. It feels like almost because I wrote it down, never intending to publish it. But then my husband and my mom read it and they were like, Colleen, this is incredible. You need to publish this book. And so just almost on a whim, I hired an illustrator to illustrate it. And then I put it up on Amazon KDP just as a way to get it printed in an affordable way. I didn't think anyone would actually read the thing. Like it wasn't,
Yeah.
I didn't intend for this to actually get out there. But once it was up on KDP, it was available for people to read. And somehow people read it and people started reaching out to me and saying, this book is amazing. This book is incredible. And then, uh, without ever intending to, I guess I became a children's book author. And then once I realized that people actually should, like, this is actually a book that people want to read, then I started pursuing the, okay, how do you publish a book? How do you really publish a book and market a book? And that was a very steep learning curve that I'm still learning on, but it's been a journey that I never thought I would go on. But it's been intense. It's been wonderful.
Heck yeah. Definitely wonderful indeed. Definitely wonderful indeed. And there's like so many lessons in that story because it's like, man, it's kind of funny enough. It actually reminded me of our past guest. Funny enough, I think even episode 200, no less. Kathleen or Keith Canavas, where she had these three separate dreams that she was she was basically having breast cancer in her body. And even though the reports kept on saying, nope, she ain't got it, one day she decided to just stay in there the whole time and like, hey, I ain't leaving until y'all do a mammogram again. It's like, oh, yeah. And it's like, oh, wow. I don't know what we did, but yeah, you're actually right. You actually have breast cancer. It's like, hey, like when you have those instincts, those inner
Wow.
voices, like that's And there's maybe even be the Holy Spirit like point you to a direction, like, hey, I want to get this checked out, buddy. You gotta really listen to it here. It's like, yeah, listen to that instinct, that intuition.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's intense, like, to have a dream about it. Wow. She sounds like she had that mama bear moment of, "I'm not leaving until you take a mammogram." That's awesome. I've been encouraging a lot of people to to trust their instincts with that when they're dealing with their doctors lately. It's been an encouraging experience to know that, like, that's something that you're allowed to do, to demand a second opinion or to demand a further investigation of something. That's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing indeed. Because hey, humans make mistakes and machines make them too. Because they're made by humans. It's like, hey, God don't make
Mhm.
mistakes. So it's like, hey, gotta sometimes go different routes and be like, hey, I talked to one human with some certifications in the letters in the alphabet soup, and they said nothing happened. So how about you, buddy? What you mean? Oh yeah, I did find something. Yeah. It's like, I knew it. Darn humans again, humaning.
Humaning. Yes. I'm very good at humaning.
I guess in this case, adulting, even though it's overrated.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right, indeed. And the beautiful thing is, good old Gracie is, she's gonna be two soon, or she already two?
She's gonna be 2 on June 1st. She's doing amazing. She has already surpassed my wildest hopes and dreams that I dared to have back in the hospital a year and a half ago. She is walking, she is moving around, she's climbing on everything. She's a happy baby. She's a happy little toddler. She's beautiful and she lights up the room when she walks in. I look at her and she's just got this smile on her face all the time. And she's the light of my world. I love her to death and she loves her brother. And they're 17 months apart, so they're very, very close in age. And I mean, there's definitely some sibling rivalry going on. Sammy is a typical oldest child and he's not too happy about this other kid coming in and and taking some of his spotlight. So there's some sibling rivalry there, but they love each other and it's beautiful. Gracie is on her own journey for sure. She is going to therapy, lots of therapies right now. She's got some vision problems. We're trying to get her to wear glasses, but she doesn't want to wear glasses. She keeps on pulling them off. So we're battling with that. And she's going to therapy to try to help her start to eat solid food. She's still pretty much 100% bottle fed, and we're trying to get her to eat solid food. And she's going to speech therapy. She's still not really verbal. She makes sound, but she doesn't really make words. So we're working with her on that. But she's a smart kid. She's very, very smart. Her problem solving skills are off the charts. When she wants something, she figures out a way to get to it. And it's a little scary because she has started moving our furniture around the house, trying to climb on things that she is not supposed to be climbing on. And she's a strong, almost 2-year-old. She can move things, and it's really scary. We're having to like
Oh,
bolt stuff down and baby proof everything. And we've had to take the lamps away from our living room so that she doesn't knock them over. And
oh,
it's,
oh.
I mean, semi typical, but still it's growing pains, more painful for me than for her. But it's a fun journey,
So I'm guessing you did wake up one day with a lampshade over your head then.
Yeah, no, she has knocked over so many things. She's knocked over my laptop, she's knocked over pretty much every lamp in this house.
Uh,
She's tried to get at the TV. She's she's climbing up the washing machine and the
oh no.
dryer and the oven and the dishwasher, and she's just climbing up everything. And then the funniest thing, I'm to the point where I've seen it so many times I think it's funny. She'll climb up on the oven and the oven door falls open, so she falls on the ground and she's so upset that this has happened. And I'm just like, you keep on pulling on the door. That's what's going to happen. So it's, I don't know, it's she's learning. She's discovering her environment and it's just a joy. to be her mom. It's a joy to just everything she does is interesting. I know I'm biased, but everything she does is interesting to me.
Oh, don't worry, nothing wrong with interesting. Who knows? Maybe you're raising a future Olympian, maybe a gold medalist for the good old US of A. That's what
You know
indeed.
what? I have joked about that, but she may be an Olympic climber. She is such a like a ridiculously good climber, and she wants to climb on everything. She's going to be great at something. I have no doubt in my mind. She's going to be great at something. If it's not climbing, it's going to be something else. I just don't know what it's going to be yet. I am where I was really scared of what her future would hold when we first found out about her conditions. I'm now really excited to see how far she'll go. I have no doubt she's going to surpass all odds and surprise all of us at just the amazing things she gets to do. And I can't wait to see it.
Heck yeah, that's right indeed. Can't wait indeed. So my goodness, since you're fellow child of the King, always invite fellow Christians to share their salvation testimony on the
Mhm.
podcast. How'd you come to know Christ, Colleen?
Oh man, I was actually really blessed to have been raised in a really strong, faithful family, really strong Catholic family. And I've just, like from as long as I can remember, I've always had a faith life. I've always had a relationship with God that I have always wanted to grow deeper in. And I never really went through that phase where, or that stage in life that you hear a lot of people talk about where they question, does God exist? Or does God really love me? Or anything like that. I never really felt the need to question that because I always felt like He did. I always felt like He was there and He did love me and He wanted to know me more. And everything I found out about Him, I wanted to know more about Him. I found Him so, I still find Him so intriguing and I want to grow deeper with Him. And then inevitably, every now and again, life would knock me on my butt and He would be there to help me get up and to carry me through it. And I've come to rely on Him so intensely, especially in the last year and a half, that God has just been there. He has performed miracles for us. It's been crazy. At like just when we look back on everything, there are so many little miracles that we've seen and huge miracles that we've seen. I'll give you one example. When Gracie first got diagnosed, she got referred to a TSC Clinic of Excellence at Texas Children's Hospital Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, Texas. And when they sent us there, they told us, when they referred us there, they told us it's probably going to be months before you can get in. They've got a long waiting list to get in there. And we were waiting to see her doctor. We didn't know what to do with her medicine. We were waiting for her medicine to get there because she was having seizures, dozens of seizures every day. And she needed to get her medicine. And we needed to see her doctors. But rewind a little bit. So incredible how God has been preparing me for this, to be my daughter's mom forever. I have spent most of my adult life in one capacity or another serving the special needs community. And it began back in college when I was introduced to this girl who was my age, who was coming to college, that she was wheelchair bound. And so I put myself through college by being her caretaker. And it was a wonderful experience, a wonderful job. She and I actually ended up being roommates, and we lived together all through college. And I got to know her and her family really, really well. And she has a brother and a sister. Her sister's named Danielle. And once I graduated from college and she graduated from college, I still stayed close with this girl, but her family I kind of lost track of. I didn't see them nearly as often, so I wasn't quite sure. And I knew that her sister had gone off to the Houston area for medical school, and that was the last I'd really heard of her. So when we got out of the hospital with Gracie, come back to a year and a half ago, this is now almost 10 years later. When we're coming out of the hospital, I start texting friends and letting people know what's going on with her. And I let my friends, her name is Alyssa, I let Alyssa know, hey, this is what's going on with Gracie. She's been referred to Texas Children's Hospital. And Alyssa gets in touch with me and says, hey, you should really call my sister, Danielle. I was like, "Oh, I haven't talked to Danielle in years. What's going on with her?" She says, "No, you don't get it. Danielle is the program infantile spasms program director at Texas Children's Hospital. She can get you in to be seen for infantile spasms and TSC right away. You need to call her right now." And I
Wow.
was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, really? Like, I didn't know at all where Danielle had ended up. I knew she was in the Houston area as a doctor, and that was it. And then she ends up being the exact program director of the exact condition that my daughter ends up having years later. That was a miracle in and of itself right there. That was intense. And then the next miracle that happened was they told us that the medicine that my daughter needed to start getting a handle on these seizures wouldn't come for at least a week because it was a very rare and expensive medicine that the hospital did not have on hand. So they were going to have to mail it to us, and they said it wouldn't get here for at least a week, if not longer. But it ended up coming the next day. And we were able to get her onto her medicine right away. And then having that contact information with Danielle, we were able to figure out what her dosage needed to be so that she has been seizure free for over a year now. And just thank
Nice.
God we were able to get it all figured out so soon and to minimize the damage that these seizures were causing by stopping the seizures as soon as possible, sooner than we ever would have been able to have happen if not for that. So I just like so many mountains have been moved, so many just walls have been shattered, and just God has been moving through every moment of Gracie's journey and through our journey, and I'm just so incredibly grateful for it.
Woohoo! Hashtag grateful. That's right indeed. And hashtag life is customer service because it's like, hey, we can't probably treat people, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. And I know that you asked, like, I feel like I've just gone on a tangent. You asked me how did I come to know God, and I ended up telling you about miracles with Gracie. I don't know. I feel like I'm going on a tangent with you all the time.
Nothing wrong with miracles. Miracles are good. The miracle business is still in business. That's right indeed. Longer than almost any other business. That's right indeed. Most businesses fail within what, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years
Oh
if they
goodness.
survive even past 10 years. Like, hey, even those good old family generational businesses still lasting
Hmm.
longer than centuries. That's right indeed. The miracle business is still in business indeed. So my goodness, so since you've been on a few podcasts promoting the work that you're doing and the encouragement that you're doing across the globe, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often?
A question I wish they would ask me more often. Yeah, I wish they would ask me what I'm doing next, and I wish they would ask me what has helped me most. You know, it's kinda surprising. I get asked what I'm doing next a little bit, but I don't get asked what's helped, which is interesting. I'll go ahead and answer those. What's going on next for me? I'm working right now on getting my current book, God's Precious Gift, A Special Needs Child. I'm getting it translated into Spanish. So that's gonna be
Sweet.
available in Spanish soon. And then I'm also working on a rough draft right now of a it's not a sequel, but more of a companion book of like a new story, a new children's book where a special needs child is about, you know, having a daughter, and it's the daughter and the parent dynamic. This book is going to be about having a special needs sibling. And it's all about how is a special needs sibling a gift to his or her other siblings. And I have a son who has a special needs sibling. So this is a book that I am really hoping is powerful and answers questions for him. I'm kind of waiting for God to give me that inspiration in the middle of the night to happen again. It hasn't happened so far, so I'm working on it. It's much more slow going than the first one was. So that's what's happening next. And also, what has helped me most is finding community. I've been finding community in other parents who have reached out to me through this book, which has been wonderful. Having other special needs parents, because I don't have any immediate, not in our immediate physical community. We don't have any other real families who have special needs kids, so there's not a whole lot of people who can relate to me there. But through this book, people have been reaching out to me, and my community has grown that way, and I've made connections, and people can relate and talk there. But then also, I have made a like through my faith, I have found some real community in figures in the Bible that I'm actually thinking about writing a book for, of just finding special needs community within scripture. And the big thing is watching the big thing for me is having to watch my little girl suffer at all. It's really hard to do. And I understand that there is redemptive suffering. I understand that there's a purpose for it, but for a child who's not even 2 years old, she doesn't understand that. So I'm thinking, okay, God, give the suffering to me. Don't let her hurt. Please don't do that. But then I look in the Bible and I look for people who had to allow their child to suffer. My first thought is Abraham, who had to choose to allow Isaac to be sacrificed. But ultimately, God did not ask that of him, thank goodness. But then I think, okay, who had to choose it and who had to follow through on allowing their child to suffer? And immediately I think of Mary. And as I have been connecting with Mary, the Blessed Mother in Scripture, I have been realizing that Mary is the ultimate special needs mom. Like she really, really is. Like she had to. She not only did she have to choose to allow her child to suffer, and then watch her child to suffer because of the thing that he was born with him, that made him different, that caused him to be different from his peers. He had he I'm trying to think of all the things. Okay, so this is what I have found. She had an at-risk teen pregnancy that almost wrecked her marriage, which would have made her just another statistic. She did not have adequate access to medical care and to therapeutic treatment for her child. She had a child who was born that she knew was different from typical children, and that his growing up journey would be different, and she didn't know what she was facing. She had to move around constantly, seeking environments that were more friendly towards her son. She had to flee hostile environments and prejudice and lack of understanding towards the things about her son that made him different. And she had to she had to deal with strange behaviors that her child had that included, but were not limited to, elopement and speaking in verbal communication that was undiscernible, that he said things that she did not understand constantly, and she had to raise this boy, and she said yes to all of it when she was like 14 years old. She said yes, let it be done unto me according to your will, when she was 14 years old. I mean, that is strength, and that is an example that I aspire to follow. I really, really do. And I struggle with it on an everyday basis to say, yes, God, let it be done unto me according to your will. Like that is a really, really hard thing for me, but I'm trying. And it's a struggle every day, but I'm trying.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. It's definitely not an easy path to walk. Definitely not an easy path to walk. Actually, somewhat surprised. Didn't even mention Meshibboleth from the Old Testament, who had that bad injury that held him back. Like,
Oh, that's true. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I think that it brought me to Mary because I was thinking about choices, and that's where my search started, is who had to choose to let her child suffer, or their child suffer. But yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There's lots of examples of people having disabilities and ailments, and there's lots of examples of Jesus healing them, and of people just being just healed, not only by their faith but by the faith of others. You know, you think about the guy who was lowered down from the roof to see Jesus, and it was because of his friend's faith that that he healed him and forgave him of his sins. And got Jesus into all kinds of trouble with the elders there who saw it. And it was just like there's so many beautiful examples of God healing and of just walking by faith and trusting in God, and He's got this. And it's a constant reminder that God is in control, and it's a beautiful thing to trust Him.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Especially when you say Jesus take the wheel and He takes both of your tires. That's right, indeed. Let me stop.
Yeah. Yes.
He's like, you ain't going nowhere today, buddy. There's an
Wheel where you're
earthquake over
talking about. That's not the wheel I said.
there. Or the whole
That
steering
wheel.
wheel off the car. No, you really ain't going nowhere, buddy.
Kidding. Oh my gosh. I like that one. I like that one. I'm gonna steal it. I like it.
Oh man. So my goodness, fun question for you. So if your fabulous book, God's precious gift, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
If it were a food, what would it be and
Yeah.
why? It would be ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream is my go-to comfort food and just always makes me feel better when I eat it. So it's the food that you need when you need comfort. It's your go-to food when you need comfort. Anytime your heart breaks, you need ice cream. That's it would be ice cream. That's my book. Whatever flavor you choose.
There you go. That's right. Go and grab that French vanilla if you want, y'all, for that extra flavor.
Mm.
That's right, indeed.
Yeah.
That's right, indeed. Doesn't have to be the regular vanilla. It could be the French vanilla. That's right, indeed. I guess in
Or
this case, it's the.
gelato.
Ooh, that's right, gelato. Yeah, gelato. Don't play the lotto. Rocky road for those rough days. Let me.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh, a cookie crumble or oh my gosh, so many options. Whatever floats your boat that day.
I guess it's a banana float, huh? Or banana split, huh?
Oh, oh, exactly. There you go. You're very good at these puns.
That's right. I told you it was the danger zone. You thought it was a podcast interview, but nah, it's a pun on a bun.
Oh my goodness, yes. I love it. I love it.
Woo! Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and it doesn't even have to involve all the ice cream. So if you're to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What advice would I give to myself? So is that like life stage 25 too, or just the age 25?
You're basically 3 years younger tomorrow.
Oh man. I would say, I would say you made it through. You got to skip the whole pandemic. Way to go. Oh man, I'm not even sure. I would say trust because 5 years ago, life had not happened yet. I wasn't married yet. I didn't have kids yet. I hadn't written a book. I hadn't moved to the house that I live in. Like my whole life was different 5 years ago. And I was just a completely different person back then. So if I was 5 years younger, but still today, I'd say look at what you have to look forward to. Your life is about to skyrocket into something beautiful. And trust God. Trust God. He's got everything. He's got everything. And so moving into today, oh man, I'd say the biggest thing is to trust God. Just trust that God has you. He'll guide you through whatever you're doing. I think that's kind of the biggest thing I've got, which sounds kind of like just so generic, but it's really true. I feel like it just trust that God has you. You're going to walk by faith and not by sight, and it's going to be beautiful.
Woohoo! It'll be beautiful in more ways than one. You'll love to see it. That's right, indeed. Go ahead and trust God, y'all. That's right, indeed. Let
Hmm.
Jesus take the wheel. That's right, indeed. If you ain't got no steering wheel, it's tell you to stay home, y'all. That's right, indeed. You'll be fine. You'll be fine indeed. Have some ice cream. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So it can be the cream of the crop. That's right indeed.
Hmm.
That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Especially if a coffee creamer comes out of your hand and lands on your head, you'll definitely be the cream of the crop because it rises to the top. That's right indeed. That's right.
You're just reaching for him now.
Oh yeah. One of my many hidden, not hidden superpowers to turn anything into a pun. That's right indeed. Just draw a pun out of thin air. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Well, it ain't about puns, it's about the Colleen the champ herself. So for those who need to keep in contact with you and keep up with your journey and all the wonderful stuff you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
You can go to my website. It's called www.godspreciousgifts.com. You can buy my book there. You can read all about what's going on with Gracie and with me there. You can also find out about all the events that I'm speaking at and doing there. And I'm starting to come up with content and resources that I'm trying to create in order to help other parents with special needs. I'm coming up with to-do list. Your child has just gotten diagnosed with a disability. You should make sure you pay attention to this thing, and a freebie on how to advocate for your child with your doctors or with your child's doctors. And so I'm starting to come up with content to post on my website to be able to help parents with special needs. Sorry, special with children with special needs. So go to my website, read my book, buy my book. It's a beautiful thing. It's a perfect gift for anybody with a child with a disability of any kind. And it's a great place for resources for parents of children with disabilities. So please go to my website, www.godspreciousgift.com.
Woohoo! There you go, folks. God'sPreciousGift.com, baby. That's right indeed. Head it over to that magical site. It'll be in the show notes indeed, because all gifts don't come wrapped up in wrapping paper. That's right indeed. Sometimes they come up wrapped up in Lego bricks. That's right indeed.
You got to break through it sometimes.
That's right indeed. That's right
Mm-hmm.
indeed. That's right. Just don't pray for too much wisdom, or you might trip up and then your feet magically land on that wonderful box of Lego bricks. And you'll be
Oh my
barefoot for
God.
some reason. And then
Oh
you'll
my
have a
goodness.
lesson to share.
I love that you laugh so much at your own jokes.
Because I'm freaking hilarious. So, my goodness, before any more rabbit holes appear out of the Lego bricks, any parting words before we close up shop, Colleen?
Oh man, just thank y'all so much for listening to this episode. Thank y'all so much for your support and your presence. I hope that this episode reaches the ears that it needs to reach. I'll be praying for you, and please head to my website to purchase your copy of my book and to find resources for parents of children with special needs.
If you're hearing this part of the episode, that means you're one cool individual. Thanks a bunch for tuning in, and if you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to share it with at least one other person in your network. Bonus points for 3. And be sure to check out the backlog too while you're at it, because there are hundreds of wonderful episodes to choose from as well.